Okay.
Oh, man, my nose is itchy.
All right.
All right.
Yes.
Oh, God, what does that mean? Oh, no. Something's coming after me. Okay. And so what I did is...
I don't see anything, Matt.
You don't see them? They're right there. It's these Anonymous. Hey, Litternet. It's Paul. It's Matt. The Dork Lords. We are here talking about Lovecraft Country, Season 1, Episode 8. This was a D episode, I would say.
Yeah, sure.
And we open on our heroes waiting in line to attend Emmett Till's funeral. This was a historical event back in the 50s. It was Emmett Till's mother chose to have an open casket to show the terrible things that have been done to her son. And so we see our heroes waiting in line to pay respects. Emmett Till had been introduced kind of subtly, frankly, earlier in the season. He was one of Dee's friends, but wasn't really called out so much. We'll come back to that. We end with a kind of a scene of like a shocking massacre. It reminded me somewhat of the last episode we just recapped of The Boys, which ended with this shocking massacre. In that case, it was the congressional hearing. Bah, 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 bah. Here it's a Shoggoth appears to protect Atticus, and it does so by laying waste to a bunch of cops. And you see one of them go like fly across the sky. Yes. So that's our frame for this episode.
Sure.
Paul,
I wouldn't expect her to have too many problems from her neighbors from now on.
Right. Right. There is that thought of like, how does that get explained in a world that does not embrace magic? What were your thoughts on this episode, good sir?
It's sort of in between a lot of things, and the last part of the story, or the last elements of the story in the next part. So, Dee isn't a character that was especially important before.
Right.
So the fact that she became an element that is going to be used against the family in the future, I feel like dramatically left something to be desired.
I agree that we weren't as invested in her, and so to see her pain, while, I felt something for her, and the fact that, she had lost her friend and everything, I think it would have been more impactful if she had been more of a central figure earlier in this season. She was definitely a background player, and then suddenly we're like, oh wait, okay, what? Dee? Okay.
Yeah, and it's funny, I haven't had a chance to review the podcast that's associated with this show, what they have to say about the episode, actually, because the importance of characters from Uncle Tom's Cabin. Why are those characters going after her?
Right.
Why is that? They don't. I don't feel like they established that really at all.
Well, it felt like these things were, because they were invisible to everyone else, so they were just figments of her imagination. So she had this argument with these two girls.
I guess
she had this argument with these two girls.
Right.
And she threw rocks at them. And then she also saw a picture, this cartoonish image on the Uncle Tom's Cabin book, and then she took those two things, and apparently that's what made these demons took that image. But you're right, like to what end? Why was that important? I don't know. Yeah, good point.
Yeah. I guess Ruby and Christina's relationship, I'm not so sure there either. She was expressing to Letty, I guess, why Christina is important to her, because she's able to get magic, and so
everyone's making deals with Christina.
Yeah. And so it's interesting. That part is interesting. The deals that everybody's making with her, sort of like, it's like Letty and Tick couldn't communicate, enough so that they could coordinate how they were, or what they were giving to Christina. Each had to sort of like, okay, I'll make my own deal.
Well, also, Letty is so judgy about Atticus and Ruby making deals with Christina. Oh, Oh, that's terrible. Anyway, I'm going to go make a deal with her now. So,
yeah.
okay.
Oh, I can't believe you.
Yeah.
Hold on a minute. Let me just make my own deal.
Anyway.
Oh, you people.
Oh, boy, what a failing on your behalf. But yeah, so Atticus.
I don't think I completely appreciated either from the previous episode that because I did note that Tick is looking at a book called Lovecraft Country.
Oh yeah.
But I didn't completely appreciate the fact that and here's the story of the show.
Yeah. That was my point in like saying, I've got a script. Like the idea that like he's like, I can read it now. Yeah, so he's come back from the future. He went to the portal, and he sees that his son wrote Lovecraft Country. Hence, he knows he's going to have a son. Hence, he knows Letty's pregnant, even though she hadn't told him. And then the interesting little, almost like a throwaway line, but he mentions it, and you're like, oh, okay. The person who gave it to him was a hooded woman with a robotic arm. Well, in the trailer for the next episode, we see that the demonic creatures have really been screwing with Dee's arm. So I think we're talking about Dee in the future gives him this book to give him foreknowledge. That's right. Yeah, right. Terminator D.
Come with me if you want to live.
Come with me. So, okay, right off the bat, there was something about this episode. This was not my favorite episode. Had some stuff I enjoyed, but it had some stuff that I didn't. And one of the things was right off the bat. We've been less than kind about the music choices at times for this show. Just because it's a period piece. And when they do the period piece type songs, it's great. And it works really well. And then sometimes they'll just it's fine. We'll just choose whatever. And this is maybe the worst case of it this season. Cruel Summer. They play Bananarama. I mean, I get it. It's the summer, and it's hot, and there's cruel. It's cruel. But
so there you go.
You're telling me there's not some song from the 50s that would have worked? That they had to reach out? I mean, Bananarama was not talking about the Emmett Till funeral. FYI, Cruel Summer is not about that. So it's just a weird.
It's and I don't feel like we've heard Strange Fruit before, but they could have Strange Fruit. They could have had Cinnamon.
Yeah, Cinnamon. I don't know if they thought about using that. Again and again. But yeah, so it was a baffling choice, and it doesn't work, and it's jarring, and to what end? It feels like they just didn't think about it. They were just like, what would be a funny little tie-in? Cruel Summer. It's a summer. So yeah, Cruel Summer, not the best choice, and it's one of the first things you hear in this episode. It's like,
setting you off
teeth
there.
A little bit. Grinds my gears. So they're in the funeral line. Dee runs off. She is caught by our, evil cop lodge master Lancaster, who puts a curse on her. Something that occurred to me was we don't see Hippolyta this episode, so we had thought maybe she's, when she has to come back through the portal for her daughter, that she would just come back in Chicago.
Right.
No, she's not here, and which makes it.
I wonder if she just hasn't come back yet.
Right, somewhere in time. But here's the idea, the whole reason she came back was what, my daughter needs me. Fair enough.
Yes.
Okay. Why is her daughter being assaulted by the cops? Because her mom killed a cop in Kansas. They are now reacting to it, and her mom is not there. So the whole reasoning for her to come back even is I want to be there in her time of need. Not that time of need, but maybe later on at Thanksgiving. I'll come in, we'll have a turkey. I don't know. It's just wow, okay. It just it seems to belie the need for her to be there for her daughter. This is the time in her daughter's life.
Well,
that which she would be needed. Perhaps.
I mean, it's a moment, but she's about to be taken over by demons, and so yeah, presumably in the next episode, she's like, here comes super mom.
All right. So you think maybe she's just waiting for that moment that's the particularly needy moment? I don't know.
Yes.
Okay.
It's
she can suffer for a while.
You don't want to. You don't want to coddle children.
These demonic creatures, by the way, it's a funny trope. It's not a knock on this show at all, but it's just funny how like the things that haunt you in movies and TV shows where they're like constantly creep up on you, and it's like they seem to have all the power in the world. They're very relentless, but they're just they're so slow about it. Like, I could walk, but no, let me look creepy, and like, oh, she's got a bike. Like, oh man, all right, let's circle up in the next hour, and we'll meet her over at the ice cream parlor. All right. Oh, damn it, she broke into a light jug. Anyway, I don't know. It's just funny. Gia we theorize she's probably coming to the States.
Right.
She has come to the States. And it's funny because I was thinking the thing that Atticus then asks her, like, well, wait, okay, so how am I dying? Who's killing me? You don't know these things? Why are you here? It's like she didn't give him any new information other than like, got this feeling still. And just FYI, you're going to die. So dinner, is that coming? Obviously, it's this awkward thing of like, oh, it's the ex sitting down with Letty.
Right, and emotionally, the subsequent events are her reappearing and Letty becoming aware that this is occurring, or at least coming face to face with the brief mentions that Tick makes.
And Letty's pregnant now too, which is a big, that adds to this tension.
Right.
But in terms of like, she gets really angry with Atticus for he said like keeping secrets. I'm like, did he? I'm not sure that he. I mean, this is earlier episodes. I know a couple episodes back. He was like, "Oh, back in Korea, there was this woman," and then I think she says like, "Did you love her?" I'm forgetting the exact conversation, but it's something like, "Did you love her?" And he's like, "Oh, that was complicated," which is true. Like, yes, he was in love with a woman. Then he found out she wasn't human, and he ran off and he left the country. Like.
Yes, he did.
And that was before he had a relationship with
Letty.
Letty.
One of the things he does mention though is you knew magic existed. Now, at least the first time he was trying to tell you about magic, you were sort of like, "What are you talking about? Something happened to us." Okay. And then you were right. So I guess maybe you could argue that he could have said, "Yeah, well, I've known about magic for a while."
Good point. Yeah, right. And also, you bring up a good point. One of the things I have appreciated is that most people seem to be just like readily accepting of magic, and they don't have these long questions.
Yes.
But there was one moment in this episode where it's when Dee sees these creatures coming up the walk, and Letty's in the way. She's like, Letty! And Letty turns like, what? And she's like, oh, because like I guess they're keeping her from talking, and she's like, go get a glass of water. Like, of all the things that have happened to you in the last week, for you to be like dismissive of, it's probably nothing. Like, why did you suddenly turn into like, stupid kid? You're like, anyway. So yes, she's selectively believing. Anyway.
Yes. Well, and if you're used to certain people, like if it was Tick or Montrose,
you're like, oh my God, is there a ghost behind me? Oh, it's D.
Oh no, it's just.
We'll go back to your comic books.
Yeah.
So Gia is there. She's obviously will aid in the plot in the future. I mean, she's got powers, and they're probably going to come in handy. Probably things that Christina and them don't really know how to deal with. They have not dealt with a kumiho before. Like Ruby drinks the potion to turn into a white woman, to have sex with William, and then she transforms while they're having sex, which was that was pretty grotesque. And they talk about why they have a disagreement as to why she took the potion in the first place. Some of these arguments in this episode, I didn't think were that effective, and I don't think it's the acting. I think the acting is good, has been very good throughout the season. I think it's the writing in this case. Like the argument between Ruby and Christina, I thought the over the top nature of the argument between Atticus and Letty, and then maybe the weirdest one was Dee barging into the cop office.
Right.
Those scenes didn't feel like actual arguments like people would have. They felt more like something that exists on paper. It didn't really translate to me. I don't know. I was just personally, I thought maybe it was a little weaker this week in terms of the nailing the.
Yeah, I think they probably could have done a better job of making sure that the issues that the characters were bringing up to each other seemed like things that it would make sense to talk about in those moments, the way they were talking about them. So in some ways, it's just sort of like I'm, at my wit's end at this moment. I'm just going to express it.
Right. It felt more like an essay or like, I have a monologue I'm going to tell you now. You're like,
yeah, I can see that. They weren't as effective, I think, as certainly in previous episodes.
Yeah. And then the D cops thing where she comes in and spits on him. He used spit to use the spell on her, and she spits on him, tells him to F off.
Right.
And
right.
I just.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it was necessary to give her that moment of triumph necessarily. I think if he had asserted himself perhaps more, that would have been truer to the situation in a way. I think perhaps the writer's affection for her may have had her perform in a way that gave her a certain sense of satisfaction that perhaps was...
Because I didn't buy her choice to go in there, and I didn't buy his non-reaction. Because she is obviously insulting the hell out of him right in front of one of his underlings.
Right.
I feel like he would have at least arrested her or done something, whatever. But like he's like, I'll let her go. She's
perhaps,
like,
her choice of going in there, perhaps. I mean, if she actually thought she could change the situation that she was under, because clearly, she blames him and she's right to blame him for that. So if she's desperate in that moment, and she certainly appears to be desperate, what she intends to do, at that point, it's not exactly clear, and allowing her to have that moment,
I got you.
Yeah, there are some problems that perhaps they could have worked on to make it a little more.
Right, I think there's a way you could have done that.
Accomplishing what they wanted to accomplish.
Right. It just didn't feel real. It didn't feel like a scene where people's needs were driving them in a way that seemed believable. I don't know. Anyway, we had this very evocative scene where Christina decides to reenact Emmett Till's murder. And she wants to feel what it feels like, I guess. So she pays people to kill her like Emmett Till was killed. And it's that's a tough scene to watch. It's interesting though, because at the end, she comes out of the water almost right away, and like as much as she probably felt the pain of it, I guess the fact that she knows going in, I can't die. It's like is that an actual? Are you actually feeling what that feeling is like? Probably not, right?
Probably
she
not.
She didn't have that.
Right, the fear of death, yeah. Right, and not a feeling of why is this happening?
She knows why. I paid these guys.
She knows why. Right, exactly. Yeah, so she doesn't have that aspect of the moment either.
Right. But it was effective in that it was like, you're seeing.
I mean, it's a the moment. Yeah, there's certainly a lot of drama to that happening and everything, and exactly why she's doing it. I don't know if what she was doing is what she expressed, which is having tension, and I forget the ritual or something. There was this second thing, but the third thing was the body. I don't know if she's the body that is causing a spell to occur, because that's what
I didn't think about that.
Does say,
I was thinking that I didn't think it was related to spells at all.
You think she was doing it so she could be more connected to Ruby?
That's what I thought.
The conversation she was having.
Right. She was like, I don't feel anything, and so she was like, okay, let me see what it feels like. I think it was kind of her. That's her weird, macabre way of trying to, be empathetic.
Right. Interesting. I mean, if they really wanted to establish that they're having a relationship, then it does raise the stakes.
Right. It doesn't just make her an out and out villain necessarily, which she's still
Right.
kind of in that. I guess she's not an out and out, but she's practically out and out villain. I don't know. I'm not rooting for Christina. Let's put it that way.
Right. No, I do like her as a character,
Yep.
and it's
As
interesting.
a character, she's interesting. I'm just saying she's
you
not
know,
like a good guy.
Right. Yes, exactly. Yeah, but and she did come out and say more what her intention is, which is to gain immortality. So, not the invulnerability that she
Right.
Really has
You had pointed out that difference earlier.
She wants to be immortal.
So she's made Letty invulnerable, but not immortal. Now.
Right.
But yeah, she's trying to get that extra step, and that's part of that. We assume, I don't know. We'll say future D, Terminator D, perhaps, when she gives the book. Yeah. The book outlines the fact that Christina was trying to, on the autumnal equinox, do something to gain immortality, much like her, the folks from before had done.
And it's interesting too what they established in the moment of massacre. When Tick is able to calm the beast.
Yeah.
They perhaps, the same way that Christina was giving birth or being present at the birth of one, and actually earlier, right?
I'm assuming that is a result of the spell. I think what happened is Montrose cast a spell. They were like, it didn't work, but that's only because he wasn't under threat.
Right.
As soon as that bullet came, the spell kicked in. And so that's why he was able to pet it, because it's there for him.
I see. Okay.
Guess. His Makes version sense. Of invulnerability. Big creature that comes around and attacks everything. I like the conversation that Montrose had with Atticus. They had a nice little quiet conversation where they talked about what it was like him being gay and also being married, and like, did you cheat on her while you were married? Like, no, I didn't.
Right.
I just wanted to have a family. And so that obviously is important. Because Atticus is like, yeah, Letty's pregnant, so they have a little bonding moment.
And he was stressing that was the thing, the basis of Montrose's love for his wife, was the fact that they both wanted a family. So they were able to create one together, and that's what they bonded over.
I agree. I thought that was, their relationship is very complex, right? I mean, they have reason to not be friends or friendly, but they found a way to.
But it does feel like the way that Montrose vows that he's going to protect his grandson and his son really puts him into the
He's definitely being matted. He even said something like, if I die that way, then so be it, or something like that. So he was saying it in reference to, I'll cast a spell and I'll take a chance on casting the spell. But I think that also I don't think his time is over just casting a spell.
They're talking about intentionality, right? And so he's sort of his vow to protect his at any cost is what he's saying, and obviously he means his own life.
Yeah, I think that's almost certainly coming before the end of the season. I was looking for a quote, a Lovecraft quote for this week.
Okay.
Oh, man, my nose is itchy.
All right.
Yes. Oh God, what does that mean? No, something's coming after me. Okay. And so what I did is,
I don't see anything, Matt.
You don't see them? They're right there. It's these anonymous. I found a quote from a short story called "The Thing on the Doorstep," and it's just it's a quick quote, but it kind of reminded me a little bit of these creatures that are after D, and so here's a little description. All right, here we go. The face beside me was twisted, almost unrecognizably for a moment, while through the whole body there passed a shivering motion, as if all the bones, organs, muscles, nerves, and glands were readjusting themselves to a radically different posture, set of stresses, and general personality. Anyway, there you go. The Thing on the Doorstep. Guy has a friend, acquaintance that's a wizard who he kills him in self-defense, buries him behind a wall to like hide the evidence. But then spirit of dead guy switches bodies. So now the killer is behind the wall, but he can't move anymore. He's just kind of trapped for eternity, sitting. It's a Lovecraft story. It's what it is. Yeah.
Beating of his hideous heart. No,
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah, and he was definitely influenced by Poe for sure. It has been a cruel summer, so
Yes.
Good for the show to play that song.
Now you know.
We will be back talking about Lovecraft Country episodes 9 and 10, and also the finale coming up of The Boys. So thank you, as always, Paul. Appreciate it, sir.
You're welcome.
Bye, everybody.